Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome, Triumph family.
Yes, welcome. I am Isabel David.
I'm Jason David, as you already know.
And we're so grateful to be here with you tonight on
Absolutely.
this beautiful Tuesday. For those of you who are first to coming to Triumph, we are a church that is so excited to be on this planet, to impart the word, to get the good news out, first and foremost. And second, to provide this safe space of learning and growing in the mature and the likeness of Christ. That is what we're about. And this is who we are as a church. It's so good. So good. So tonight, I'm going to be asking Jason a couple questions. I think it's towards the time of where we're living in. Many world events are, you guys can see, it's all over the news, or maybe through speaking and through your social media. Just so many things are going on. And I wanted to really touch on this because I think that there's a lot of coping that we're all doing since 2020 and now. And so I wanted to bring Jason on tonight to really get a feel about what's in the spiritual sense, how we can, what's the good word? Cope with that, going through the day-to-day life, and learning how to see what part of us needs to transform or transmute, and how we can do that in our own practice or in our own walk with God. So that's the tonight's topic. That
was a lot. Can we narrow it down?
Yes, let's do that. How would someone go about working through the circumstances of life? How can they cope with the unknown?
With the unknown. How to cope with the unknown?
Yes.
Okay. That's a really great question. And how many of you probably are in a place where you're trying to cope with the unknown?
I'm sure everyone.
I think it's a question of how you're using your awareness. Now, I know this came from something that you were talking to me about on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it still on that topic? Do you want to bring that up, what you were talking about on Sunday? Because I think it's not just me answering it about I think, okay? I'm not sharing my thoughts with you. I want to make that clear. You can choose to believe. Everyone gets to remain in their power. And whatever you choose to believe is what you choose to believe. That is the God-given right that Holy Spirit, that God, your creator, has given to you and to you, right?
Yes.
With that said, there is truth with a capital T, and there is reality with a capital R. And you can call the apple an orange as much as you want. It's still that succinct, different, unique fruit that we call an apple, and it will never be what we call an orange.
Yes.
Okay.
Two different species.
Yeah, it's a fact of a reality. So I can call this table a rug as much as I want, but this thing that we call a table will never be a rug. It will never be a carpet. And so I think when we're talking about fear, and I wanted to contextualize that, because when I share what I'm sharing with you and answering your question, I share it with this audience. I don't want people to think that when I'm answering your question and I say I think, it's because I mean I guess or I surmise.
Right.
Okay. Semantics in the English language being as what they are, kind of very specific, yet people make up their own thoughts and imaginations about what those words mean, right? We do it all the time. That's why we have an urban dictionary now, because people change words all the time. There's a difference between what a word is and what a word has come to mean to a certain people at a certain time,
yes,
but then reverts back to its definition 50 years later, right? So when I say I think, I'm not saying that I surmise, and I'm not saying that I guess. Uh, I believe that fear, coping with uncertainty, God can make you certain in uncertain times. That's really an earshot, right?
Mm.
That can be an earshot to a lot of people. God can make me certain in uncertain times, or that spirit makes us certain in uncertain times. But then there's a difference between having a theosophy, having a theology, and having an ecology, having something that I can practice. How do I live what you're saying? And I think that's what you're asking me. And if you're asking me that, then you have to have both. We have to, we get to shift into opening our hearts a bit to understand that how do you cope with the unknown? You don't,
Mm.
because the unknown will always be unknown. So if you're always coping with the unknown, then you'll never be at the place of what you really want in your question, which is how do I live my best life? But I
Yeah,
struggle with the unknown.
that's right.
How do I live my best? How do I live free of this nervous system jolting anxiety slash what I'm calling fear response?
Right.
Right?
Hmm. That's the heart of the question.
Yeah. So the nervous system. The reason why people fear the unknown is not really because they fear the unknown. When you went to school, you didn't know your teacher and you didn't know the class, but because your mother was taking you, it was okay. Now some kids it's not. Some kids they cry bloody murder at their mom's leg. I remember when I was first dropped off at kindergarten. I remember it to this day. There was a really stocky little boy. He was like the little boy in Willy Wonka,
Hmm.
you know, and his face was beet red because he was crying so hard
Wow.
that his mother was, dropping him off in the class. It wasn't the unknown that instigated his terror.
What was it?
It was the known that was leaving him.
Mm. That's a good distinction.
Yeah.
We get so
So
comfortable with the known.
he didn't run away from the class. If he was afraid from the class or the school or the teacher, he would run away from the class. He would run away from the teacher. He would run away from the school, regardless of whether his mom ran or not. He would run.
Wow.
He wasn't fearing the school.
Right.
He was clinging to the known. He was clinging to his mother's legs. So what happens is he had a sense of control, and we cling to what we know. We cling to what we know. We arrest what we know. If his mother, see, he didn't cry the whole time until she was leaving. So he wasn't afraid of school. He probably thought that his mother was going to school with him.
Mm.
Maybe in his little imagination, he thought that his mother would be in class with him every day at school, and then they would leave together, right?
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not, you cannot cope with the unknown, because the only the unknown will never help you cope. It doesn't, there's no information in the unknown. There's no data in the unknown. That's why we call it the unknown. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So we could talk and quote scripture about fear not. I can easily say things like perfect love casts out all fear. I could say God has not given you a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love, power, and of sound mind. This is what happens in religious dogma. Religious dogma answers the question and says, hey, this is what it says. Get in alignment. All right.
Sure.
But don't you feel, I don't know if you've ever thought about this much, but don't you feel after I shared this with you, how do you feel?
Well, when you share it with me with what you just said, it makes complete sense.
And do you feel
There's-
more at home with that
there's-
understanding? Does it
there's-
feel comforting?
It feels very practical.
Okay.
It's knowing that it's very practical, and that's human nature, is
Gotcha.
for us to feel like we have a sense of control. And when we lose that sense of control, of course, we're going to experience that fear if we choose to. And that's the distinction I'm seeing, is that it's not really the afraid of the unknown. It's that we have something that we've known so long, and it's very comforting. It reminds me of like sipping hot chocolate. You just
Yeah.
know what that tastes
Yeah.
like.
So we cling to the known. We cling to the known. So I want you to, if you take that, how do you cope with the unknown? You can't, because the unknown is always unknown.
So how does
The
somebody
unknown, yeah,
how does somebody move towards the freedom
absolutely.
of experiencing that courage? Because last Sunday, for those of you who have not seen it, you should go back on YouTube and take a look at the amazing sermon that was broadcasted, because it's so
Thank you.
powerful. It's very powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
One that I got from it is that we're walking in this space of fear not, and Triumph is building people to have courage, true courage, walking without fear. And in a world of so many different circumstances, so many different events that are happening right now, it seems like everything's just all at once, right? We're bombarded on our social media, on the news, in conversations.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I would say, many people would say that they feel unrest, unpeace.
Sure.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
issues that are experiencing right now is a lot of fear. So how does one work through that if they experience that? And then
absolutely,
what would be the practical?
I understand your question.
Mm-hmm.
I think what let's go back to the known and unknown. What happens is you have to take what is absolutely known. So what you just quoted, unrest, and then you pointed at bombarded sources and things.
Right.
So if you allow yourself to be pinpricked in your consciousness by those pieces of information, and I want you guys to tend to this, right? Consider this. You're getting a piece of information, but you're not there collecting it.
True.
So what instigates the anxiety is that you're so smart, you're so divinely intelligent, that even though you're getting information through whatever sources, you still don't know if it's true. So it's actually the unknown that your heart sees in the known, in the information.
Mm-hmm.
It says, I'm getting this information, but I yet don't know it. What part of this is true? What part of this is spin? What part of it is agenda? What part of it is narrative? If you notice, whenever anyone gets anxious on whether I should trust this person or not, they've met them, they shook their hands, they actually are interacting with the person face to face, but something happens inside their mind where they go, do I really know them? When they say that, and when they allow that mechanism that's within them, which is a program. It's a program of doubt. It's a program of fear. It's a program of scarcity that is stopping them from living at full. Part of that program is a survival program. It's a program that's built into all of us. There's a certain level of fear that is built by God. It's in our nature.
Right.
Danger, gonna die, run away, right? Flight, fight, or freeze. Stop. If you stop, it's going to pass you. That's freeze. Fight. You're bigger than it. You could take it out.
Right.
Attack it before it attacks you.
Mm-hmm.
Flight. You're going to die. That is it. That thing's going to take you out. You can't handle that arena. You can't speak to 100 people. You can't make that phone call. You can't network market. You can't be a door-to-door salesman.
Right.
You can't be a supermodel. You can't be an actor. You can never rise above your station. You don't have the education, or you have the wrong education, or you spent X amount of years in this industry. How can you flip to this industry? It's the unknown element that says, it doubts and it goes, I don't know. Do I trust this person? I don't know how to act. I don't know how to sing. I don't know. That I don't know stirs the fear. So how do you cope? The I don't know stirs the fear. So we don't cope with the unknown. We cope, meaning training our nervous system, regulating our nervous system by what we do know. So when someone's in fear, you don't say, well, what are you afraid of? You say,
Mm.
well, what do you know? I know that I'm safe, right? We do this as
Yes,
well.
we do it.
I know that I'm safe. I know that I'm here. I know that I have running water. I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm protected. I know that you're my advocate. I know you're going with me into that situation. I know that I'm protected. I know that people have my back. I know that I have mentors. I know that I have people that love me. I know that I have friends that are my wingmen. I know that, right? You quote what you know. How do you cope with fear? You don't. You cope in life with what you know. If you always stay in a form of the acknowledging your knowingness, then fear resides. I mean, fear subsides, right?
Yes.
If I say, if my doubts, if something comes up and goes, well, you don't know, Jason, that might not work out. I go, that might not, but
Mm.
it might, because I know this is in play, right? Now, if the information is seeking to stoke fear, I go, what part of that is my mind saying that I'm out of control of?
Mm.
And then I assess, is that true? Am I out of control of it, or can I actually control it? If I go through that, I'm sharing with you guys 8 times out of 10, what you think you can't control or you have no influence of, you have absolute influence of. You can step out of it. You can step into it. You can say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You can say, I don't want to go there anymore. You can say, I want to go there farther. I want to go beyond where I was going to go. I want more than I was actually asking for. I don't want a 3-course meal. I want a 5-course meal. You can change everything.
Right.
If someone's going to get married, they're discovering 3 months before they're going to get married that this person is probably not the person. How do you control that? You ask questions. You engage in the scenario. If you freeze, then you're creating an atmosphere for sabotage because you're not coping well.
Mm.
Your nervous system is taking over you, and the fear response of the unknown, because you're dwelling, mental recitation. You have to remember, everyone. I want you to remember this. Just because you have mental activity doesn't mean that you're thinking. Okay? Just because you have mental activity doesn't mean you're thinking. So you have to actually employ the right use of imagination, the right use of thought, the right use of intelligence, the right use of perception, the right use of memory, the right use of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You have to use those components of your being the right way. I think that for me, whenever I have struggled with fear, it's been very simple. It's why, what am I fearing? Is it reasonable? And instead of dwelling, see, my mind went to, what don't I know? See, it's going, what don't I know? What don't I know? What don't I know? Is it, shh. If you're concerned about information, now go get the information.
Mm.
How do you cope with fear? Go get the data that you need from a non-attached place. In other words, I get the information, but I'm not attached.
That's so good.
It's just information.
That's so good.
It's just information.
So what we're saying is that when we're taking in the information and receiving the information, even in that process,
Yeah.
we're not making that information good or bad.
Yes. It's just information to be able to employ
a decision.
Yeah.
And usually when you employ a decision, for those of you who don't know, I'm studying Chinese medicine, and those decision is really important because it allows the energy to move when you're stuck, not making a decision. How many of you have felt like you're stuck, and your mind, as Jason would say, is mentating,
Yes.
ruminating. Those are the same similar words.
You're stuck in a cyclical response where you're not going anywhere. It's the same thought over and over and over
so
again.
Then you're experiencing the anxiety because you don't have the information, or you have made that information bad.
That's a perfect example. So when you're mentating, you're dwelling in the unknown. You're going, what don't I know? What don't I know? I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know what's going to happen. The more you do that, you're building an energy chamber that's growing inside of you. That energy chamber is impacting your nervous system. And what you're telling your nervous system is, you have cause to be afraid. And your nervous system says, I have cause to be afraid. Okay, what do you want to do? Want to fight? Okay, you want to run away? Okay, you want to freeze? What's the modus operandi here? And if you don't decide for your nervous system will decide for you through sabotage, through not answering a call, through sabotaging a phone call and yelling at someone for no reason, yelling at your spouse. Okay, you create an argument with your spouse. So then you go, well, you know what? I'm not going to the dinner anyways then. I'm not going to the event. The truth is, you were afraid about going to the event the whole time, and you never responded to your nervous system. So you created an argument so that you can project the excuse on the spouse and the incident and say, I'm not going to the event anyways.
Wow.
I'm going to drop out of school. I'm going to not go forward with that contract. I'm not going to I got my whole suit tailored. I was going to go to this premiere event I finally got invited to, but I'm not going to go. But I was afraid the whole time. The truth is, I was afraid the whole time. Why? Because I was dwelling in the unknown. Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? I don't know what's going to happen.
So
I don't
it's
know.
actually the inversion. I feel like I might be rejected, so let me reject first.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So you want to dwell in the known. What do you know? The scripture says, fear not, for I am with you wherever you go. Al Torah. So what do I know? God is bigger than everything, right? And he's in me. But do you know it? If you don't, you have to come to know it.
Wow.
And then you can, okay, go ahead.
I mean, maybe that would be another segment. How
Sure.
do you come to know the knowing that is true and absolutely like a staff unbreakable? Like it doesn't, like what we talked about on Sunday, the rod does not bend.
Yeah, I think there's several different ways. Number one, expose yourself to the stories of people who have taken the actions that you're going to need to take and have succeeded. So you know God is with you, but then behind it, you also know that these are success principles that you're practicing, even though your nervous system is afraid. Even though your nervous system, maybe there's a little spot in you that says, I don't know, and you shh, but I do know, because you remind yourself, I know because other people have done the same and have succeeded. And if they succeeded, I can succeed. And God is with me. So hello.
Borrowing either their courage,
borrow their faith,
or their faith, or their strategy.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So if you bank on success principles and the principles that work, the spiritual principles that are eternal, things that work, period. If you keep using principles that don't always work, that people are trying to figure out in this era, right? Everyone's like, I want to do something new, or I'm going to be the new person, or is that really true about sexuality? Or is that really true about multiple partners? Or can I be in polyamory? Every civilization that's practiced polyamory has fallen apart. So you look at that, it's not a success principle. If you're practicing polyamory and you're trying to explore it, right? I'm telling you, go study all the Mormons that are married to multiple people and see how happy their marriages are. Some of them have, the percentage of happy marriages in Mormonism is very small, both for the women and the men. So that means you'd have to study thousands of marriages throughout history in ancient civilizations where they had more than one spouse, usually a man with more than one wife. You'd have to study those civilizations where it was culturally okay. It was culturally accepted. Second, you had to be a man that had much wealth in order to, they're like levels. Like in China today, you're not buying a wife, but it's practical to give a bride price, right? So you get married and you need to pay to the wife and the family
a dowry.
And in China it's called a bride price, right? It's totally wrongly interpreted in English because it sounds like we're paying for the wife, right? That she's selling herself. It's not. There's an honor exchange. In South Africa, one of my great brothers and friends, he needed to give a dowry to his his in-laws, in order to seal the deal that he was going to marry his wife. You would have to study ancient civilizations around one man marrying multiple women, and how much of a budget, how much of an income they had to have in order to afford those dowries. Well, if you can't afford, okay, you have to give this dowry, but you also have to have this much money that says you could afford one wife, afford that family. Because one wife could be 15 sons and daughters, right? So you imagine 5 wives.
Wow.
Could be 50, 60, 70 kids, right?
Right.
So you're talking, this is not a family anymore, this is a tribe. This is becoming a tribe.
Yes.
This is a clan. And so why am I sharing that? Because there are principles that work. So you would have to study in something so rare as in having multiple marriage partners. You would have to study hundreds and thousands of those stories to determine the success principles amongst the minute amount that experience success. But in life, there's so many more success stories around everything that you only have to study a good 50 in your field to get a concurrent conclusion, right?
And I will add this. I mean, this is when you were speaking about the verses that you were mentioning and it not being about dogma, right? But there are so many amazing principles that are spoken about in the Bible that if you read through a lens of receiving and revelation meaning this receptive space of knowing, wow, there's an impartation that you get to grow in, and it might illuminate even a bigger truth for you in your own personal life. That's how I would say it. And for those of you who don't know, like I was raised Buddhist. My family raised Buddhist. So coming into a place of reading for the first time new words and thought principles and reading in a place of context was a challenge for me. But wow, am I glad that I did it, because there's so many principles here that are eternal.
So those principles, have they comforted you and reduced your fear response?
Yes, when I speak about them in the affirmation part of it.
Because when you affirm, you're releasing a word, which is a principle and a truth. You're seeing that as truth. Then your mind begins to say, okay, how do I see that story working out with this truth? But then you're also hearing the truth. It's going into your brain, and then you're feeling the truth because you're speaking it and hearing it, right?
Yes.
So if you've had lies spoken of you over your life, well, you didn't speak those lies. You're not the one that first taught those false principles,
that's so true.
but they were driven into your nervous system through your subconscious mind. So you have to get emotionally involved in your affirmations, because when you get emotionally involved, you pass the contending thinking mind, the doing mind, the ego mind, the active mind, and you move into the subconscious mind, because your body, your being, your subconscious responds to what you feel. So if you get it in and you speak it and you actually get yourself to feel what you're believing about that, the conclusion of its truth, then your body says, oh, I believe. Your being says, I believe that. Because we're not contending with our spirit. We're contending with the programming in our body that's impacting our soul.
That's so true.
So
true.
So when you engage in coping with fear, which is not coping with fear, it's when you're having a struggle with the presence of fear, you cope by employing faith. How do you employ faith? You focus on what you know, not what you don't know. You see, people will make the mistake and go, but I know I'm gonna fail. Oh, well, whatever you believe and whatever you think, if you think you can and you think you can, you'll be right, because you're believing that. So you're making it a knowingness. If you know you're going to fail, if you know it's going to be a struggle, if you know the marriage is going to fail, if you know the business is not going to work, then you'll be right, because you will justify through your actions that behavior that'll match that knowing. So the same is true if your knowing is faith-based. If you're knowing, this is not a blind eye faith. This is, again, I'm with you wherever you go. Fear not. Al Torah. Fear not. Hebrew word for fear not in the ancient scripture is al terah, which means just doesn't, hey, it's going to be okay. God's not saying, hey, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. I know it's rough. I know you're struggling right now, but it's going to be okay. You're going to make it. That's not what God, that's not what al Torah interpreted as fear not means. It means absolutely have no ounce in you whatsoever of any trepidation, of any nervous system response, of any fear, of anything. Be courageous because I am with you. Al Torah meaning you don't understand. I created the universe. I am with you. Can you imagine? Like,
the creator of the universe.
Like, yeah, and make it really practical. If anyone had a bully when they were a child, I had a bully. I had 2 bullies when I was a child. The only thing that allowed them to bully me is that I was taught to be meek when I was a child, right? I was taught to be meek. I was taught to hold my power back because I was trained as a little kid, but trained in boxing with my father, who was a boxer. So I was trained. You could hurt someone. So never provoke a fight. And if you can walk away, walk away. But if you're being pushed and pushed and pushed and someone's disrespecting you, give them a warning and tell them to back away. And if they don't listen, then tell them, if you touch me again, I'm going to fight you. And so that's what I was trained. And I was a good boy. So I followed that protocol like a good boy. And so just imagine, though, if I was the little boy that I was defending at times, or the girl that the bully was bullying. But they had already seen me fight.
Yeah.
And they had already seen that I beat all the bullies in the school that bullied, right?
Yeah.
But then I say, hey, listen, don't ever fear when they're around, because I'm always watching and I'm with you wherever you go. They'd be like, oh, when the bully comes, they'd be like, go ahead and try to touch me. Jason is coming, right? It's going to be okay. You'll make it, even though you're going to be shaking through it. No, God is saying, remove all of that and allow yourself to be comforted in knowing that the creator of the universe is with you. Move forward, right? So
that takes a lot from yourself to train yourself, to remind yourself
that you're not alone.
That you're not alone.
Ever.
And you got this because God is with you.
God is with you.
So
wherever you go.
So that's so powerful because it comes back into what we're just speaking about and why I asked you.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people, friends, family, constantly in a fretting and a fuming about certain things that are happening in the world. And there's
that's a power of positive thinking reference.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's good.
So there's this polarization that's happening in our society, and there's this tendency to experience frustration because it's not enough, or there's not enoughness, or the mind is going into a mentation, just ruminating over the same thing.
Scarcity programs,
right? Like, do
programs.
I have not enough time, or I don't have enough money, because there's anxiety to take the jab or not take the jab. There's anxiety regarding gas prices, all the things
travel, not travel.
Yes.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So
again, the known versus the unknown. Dwell in the known. For me, I don't, and this is not about boasting. How can I say this as respectfully as possible? I'm just going to say it. As soon as word of the virus came out, I had no fear. And as much as they kept inducing that this was the scariest thing ever, I had no fear. Because I don't focus on the unknown, I focus on the known. Yeah, but the news was saying, so isn't it known? You don't know, and I don't know how your nervous system and how your immunity is going to respond to a virus. But what do I know? Number one, I know that God is my healer. Number two, I know God is a protector. Number three, I know that even if God allows me to get sick, he could heal me. Number
Mm.
four, I believe. See, this is where I am in creator mode, not in victim, everything's happening to me mode. So I know that I speak healing over my life and I speak wellness and health every day. I know that I rarely ever get sick. And I mean from years of distance of time. I mean from one point of getting a flu to another may have been 5 to 7 years.
That's
When I
amazing.
yeah, when thank God. And when I've gotten the flu and been subject to the elements, within a day or 2 days, I'm pretty much back. Then I'm just
That's true.
in recovery mode. She
True.
saw me get sick once and come under the elements, and I recovered pretty quickly. With that said, I'm not fearing the unknown. I'm focusing on the known.
Mhm.
Ready? What else is known? From the get-go, at the beginning, where they discussed the virus, they already showed what the percentages of its impact would be. They already scaled through the whole world what the impact might be. And they always focused on cases, but not deaths. So I have open eyes to accept what I see. They're talking about cases, but they're not talking about deaths. And the deaths are really small down here in small script, and it's very little compared to the amount of people that are on the planet and the amount of people that are in the country. Now, those of you that may feel triggered by that, I want to tell you something. My father died. He transversed. He transitioned from this life to the next life, instigated by the virus that's been going on over the past couple years. So if you say, well, maybe you didn't have anyone that you know died, and that's why I do. I do. And I'm still not afraid of it because maybe it was his time to go. Number two, I'm not responsible for my father's diabetes. My father was sickly. He was responsible for his diabetes. He was responsible for his sugar levels. He was responsible for his physical health. This is not discompassionate. This is just binary. It's just he was responsible. So if he couldn't battle the sickness because of what he had and it inflamed, did I pray? Yes. Did I believe? Yes. Did I accept? Yes. Why? Because I dwell in the known. I take all the information and I know it. And whatever the calculated risks are, life is a risk. Every time you go outside and get in your car, there's more of a chance that somebody would die by a car accident than someone die of that virus. So if I'm afraid of the virus, then shouldn't be I be equally anxious about getting in my car and driving to the store?
That would be logical sense.
That's just
Or binary.
it's common sense. But because everyone else is doing it, we get stirred up. So if we feel other people getting fearful, we get stirred up. What did the media do? They kept pumping and still pumping until Russia attacked. They kept pumping about the vaccine and about the new thing about Omicron. But when Russia happened, the news started dropping almost all the news about the thing. What? That's their prerogative. That's their prerogative. That's their business. I'm not judging, but I am seeing with open eyes and choosing what's good for me and for you and for our family to live in a holistic, healed, and upright position, right? I remember at the beginning, Isabel, if I can share this,
Sure.
you didn't struggle with finding out about the virus, right?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. So you weren't afraid.
Right.
What happened was we were allowed to go outside. Everyone's allowed to go outside to work out and to run and to play. You know, that was the whole law in California. We were living in California when this happened. And by the way, that's a misuse of words. It wasn't law. It was guidelines. Okay. Remember, it was called a memorandum. It was called guidelines. The verbiage said highly suggested, highly recommended.
Right. You did
Okay.
say that.
So remember your power. When someone says it's highly recommended and it's highly suggested, that means that you don't have to do it. Okay. So she was never afraid, but there were times where we were out, and for some reason, when she would see police officers, could feel her get nervous.
Yes, it was timidity.
Yeah.
No?
And I'd say, what's going on? Are you nervous? is something happening?
Mhm.
And you would say, yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, you know.
It
So
was programmed.
it was programmed. There was fear. There was a programmed fear response, and you correct me if I'm wrong, of people of authority and doing something that was suspicious or something that you could get in trouble for.
Mhm.
What did I tell you in the car to help you?
Look around, and who's that person? Aren't they smiling? What are they doing? Do they look like they're afraid? No.
Are they working out?
Are they working
Are
out?
they running?
Yes.
Do they look like they're peaceful under the tree working out on the grass?
Yes.
Look, there's a cop. Did that person get afraid? Did that person get afraid? Did those cars get afraid? Did that person get afraid? What's the
It was so good. It was so powerful. Just that specific being able to borrow
yes.
courage, being
Yes.
able to borrow faith if you don't have it,
Yep.
being able to see with your own eyes the expression and be able to vocalize what you're seeing was
That's right.
so important. I mean, I think about it today. It really snapped me out of the my nervous system experiencing what I was experiencing, and so this is a reason why we brought it up tonight. Was because I still see there's so many people around the world that are just experiencing a very heightened level of fear of not being able to provide for their children or not being able to do what their normal
Yes.
daily activities are. And it can be fearful and scary at times, but we are made to conquer. We are
Yes.
made to overcome. We are
That's right.
made to win.
That's right.
So I wanted to bring this up because we wanted to give you and impart a something that is super simple.
Yeah. And it is. It's very base. This is the foundation.
Yes.
There's more. But I think it was a great question because people get to know. And as some of you may be struggling, maybe you're a single parent and you have kids and you don't have a job, and maybe your unemployment just ran out, or whatever entitlements you're getting from the government, or is about to run out, and you're, what am I going to do? What am I gonna... Notice your mind is trying to focus on the unknown, focus on the known, and then focus on your power. What talents do I have? What do I have? Do you have a phone? Do you have a driver's license? Take accumulation of what you do have. Do you have family that might be able to help you with babysitting so you can go make work for 4 hours or whatever it is, right? Do you have, what do you have left over in your house? Do you have flour, eggs? Can you bake something?
Mhm.
Can you bake, a bunch of cookies and sell them? And now you might be, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, that's up to you. If you don't want to do what you can do in order to have whatever resource you want, no one's going to tell me that I can't, I'm too high and mighty to go, wash dishes at a restaurant. If someone says, hey man, I know you're a massively wonderful person and a spiritual being and you're a life coach and you help millions, but I heard that you don't have income right now. I have a secretarial position. I could just do it part-time for us, and we'll give you some money. Now the beauty of it is I believe that the more you give, the more God combines the mysterious forces of life to come and help you. So trust and know, take account to your resources. The scripture says that there was a man named Samson, who's a very superhuman strength he had from God to be a judge for Israel and to fight off Israel's enemies. But it said that he was surrounded one point with hundreds of enemies, and he didn't have a weapon. And he saw a dead carcass in the field, and he ripped the jawbone out of the dead carcass, and he slayed all his enemies with a dead jawbone of a donkey.
Wow.
So be resourceful. Your might, your little seed in God's hands can multiply to be a weapon to take you from the pit to the palace, from shame to fame. God says he'll take your shame and he'll turn it to fame. This is the promise of the Lord. So I want you guys to be encouraged. I thank you for the question, because I hope that her question provoking me to answer helps you focus on the known Take account of what you know and what you have, and remember that there's greatness inside of you, and nothing, you don't need to be afraid of anything except for standing in the highway when trucks are coming. The practical, God operatory fears of some spidey senses of that burns, that hurts, don't do that, don't do this. But you don't have to be afraid of circumstances and start focusing on things and the world of effects. Focus on the inner life that creates the outer life. And focus on what you have. Focus on what God made you. You have more talents. You could record an audio today, the technology, and start a podcast. And you could be putting reels on Facebook every week, 3 times a day. And Facebook will send you money for those reels as they're getting attention. You could start a community online and have people pay $1 a month for your community. And it could be about rapping or whatever you add value in your life. It could be about knitting. It could be about organizing your house. It could be
so
about,
you have like what I hear you saying is employer gifts.
Employ your gifts.
Employer gifts.
Take account. Focus on the known.
Yes. Focus on the known, employ your gifts, and believe that God is with you, and remember that. And if you don't remember that, you get to tell yourself that every day. So with that, we're so grateful that you are here with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
If it has helped you, we'd love to hear from you. Our Facebook page is on Triumph Global now. You can DM us or leave a comment here at the chat box. And it's super easy to get in touch with us just through DM. Also, on Discovery Nights, it's every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. and Sundays. If you want to continue growing deeper and deeper in your knowingness with God and who you are in the Spirit, join us Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We come to you live. It's so good and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
I am Isabel David.
I'm Jason David.
And we thank you.
Bless you guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Please click the share button. Please click subscribe.
Yes.
And if this is serving you, click that little bell to get notifications. Tell your friends and family, because we're just beginning to release what God has for you guys.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Take care.
See you soon.